Welcome everyone to the 30-minute Midas Touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh Wrestleplex. Now, here is pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 30-minute Midas Touch. I hope you enjoyed my very humble intro that we have. As always, I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, and with me is my co-host, the Molotov Cocktail, Mark Tipton.
Oh my goodness. The Molotov Cocktail. Well, I've never really considered myself that
You're explosive.
Yeah, I'd never seen myself in that light. Kind of a fire starter there, explosive. I hadn't thought of myself in that manner, but I do appreciate the moniker as always. And I'm curious how that's going to fit in this week, but we'll see.
Well, we were talking about Nikita Koloff.
Ah, there we go. Well, that's fine. That works in because this week's edition of the 30-Minute Midas Touch podcast has a subject matter that's somewhat ill-defined. Broad and subject to interpretation, I suppose, is a good way to think of it. Because this week we want to discuss the concept of paying dues in professional wrestling.
Yeah, and this is it's a very undefined kind of expectation in professional wrestling. Everyone talks about paying dues, but there's no step one, step two, because everyone's path is different and everyone's story is different, so their version of paying dues varies. Basically what it boils down to is, when you first get into wrestling, it's much more like an apprenticeship than it is a job. You understand? Just like a tattoo artist. Like tattoo artists, they have to go and they have to study under someone to know how to do that particular art form. Correct? Same thing with professional wrestling. And guys that are in the business for less than a year and worrying about money, that drives me absolutely nuts because, like Jim Ross said, it's basically like an education. It's like you're paying to go to college. You understand? So you're going to lose money, but in the end result is going to be you're going to be a great professional wrestler, right? So paying dues is something that obviously I try to instill in our trainees and the people that have come through the Pro Wrestling Mid-South Academy. It's something that I had to do. I remember, when I first broke in, when we wanted to work out in the ring and work on stuff, we actually had to put up the ring and then we had to take it down because there was other stuff going on. We couldn't just leave it up. You know what I mean? So and just paying dues in general, like making sure you get to the arena early to help, to put up the ring, and stuff like that, help with chairs, whatever needed, go put out posters for the promoter. I mean, there's just, it's really, like I said, it's very undefined, and then it's very broad. I mean, there's just a lot of things you can do as far as in the way of paying dues.
All right. I was trying to kind of make notes, and because this is an edition where I have to kind of take your lead on this, because coming from the viewpoint I have of a member of the audience, I try to appreciate the concept of paying dues and the importance that the people who are literally in the business place upon it. And I guess the first thing that came to mind is it's kind of an attitude or a mindset, whatever you want to say it, of respect. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unless we try to respect everybody, but like I've had guys come in first day and think they know shit or they want to tell me how to do something. I cut them down quick. Like, no, you don't know fucking anything. And that's just part of the process too. You're a prime example. Even though Mark Tipton is a wrestling fan, like we discuss every week, there was a time and period where Mark Tipton was a ring announcer. And, he did a very great job for us. But in the end, he eventually decided, hey, I just want to be a wrestling fan. And that's what he went back to. But also when you were in that role, though, you never disrespected anybody. And because you understood that you were a ring announcer and your job was to do this, this, and this. And our job was to wrestle. And you tried to accentuate us the best you knew how to do. and did a great job at it. So paying dues is kind of along the same lines. It's almost like knowing your place sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, we talked about, I said, what's her name was speaking above her pay grade last week.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that same scenario. If you've only got 2 years in the business, then you should be trying to tell someone that's got 20 years in how to book their show. The worst thing that I hate to hear as a wrestling booker or promoter is someone come up to me and go, "Hey, do you know what you should do?"
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because, like, okay, one, whatever we're talking about, you probably thought about it for 30 seconds, and I thought about it for 10 years. You understand? So let's, and it's just I don't want to say it's a fire starter with me because it happens all the time, but I mean, I just kind of, I listen to everybody. I listen to ideas, and unfortunately, my job is to say no 90% of the time, so 99% of the time.
Okay, as you mentioned, the idea of things you had to do prior to getting in the ring. I kind of thought I was going with gratitude on that, but I thought the idea was that you wanted those who are learning to make their way in professional wrestling to understand that all this doesn't just happen. There's a lot of work that has to go into preparing and being able to do what you want to do during the course of your match, but there's a whole lot that has to be done to make that happen. And maybe what you were required to do before getting in the ring was to make you cognizant of that.
Yeah, and it's also, for us, it's to really immerse the guys in the fact that you can't just willy-nilly be a part of the business. You know what I mean? Like, if you really want to do something of merit in professional wrestling, you have to live it. You know what I mean? You have to live it. I don't think anyone can ever doubt, me living professional wrestling. I've always lived and breathed by it, and that's what you have to. It's not just one of those things you can do as a goof. Well, I'm gonna do this, in my spare time and do it. That kind of dedication doesn't work. That may work for building ships and bottles or whatever kind of hobby you want to have, but in professional wrestling, it doesn't work because it takes so much effort and so much time and things of that nature to be successful on any level. That it just doesn't compute.
All right. Well, during the concept of time and this is where we're getting. I guess what I'm wanting to say is, it's not like there's a checklist.
No.
Okay, I accomplished this task that I can check off my to-do list. Here's what I've done. Okay, now I've paid my dues.
Yeah. There's nothing like that, and it's obviously there's. Like I've been wrestling 21 years, and wrestling promoter, booker, champion, whatever you want to talk about, right? But if I went to WWE tomorrow, I would start at the bottom of the totem pole, and I would have to pay dues to whatever I eventually became, And I think once they started working with me, they'd understand how much passion I have for professional wrestling and what we're doing. But for the most part, it's it's kind of and that's true anywhere you go. You understand? Unless you have a built-in rapport with the promoter and the booker before the onset, you understand you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to eat some shit for a little bit to see what happens and see how it fits. And maybe they can get to a spot where you're a trusted member of the whatever, and then they can give you more opportunities.
Okay. Well, I like that. You mentioned how if you went to work for Company X, it'd be like starting over, because that gets into, I was going to say, well, there's no set checklist and there's no particular time limit on this at all.
No, you never stop paying dues. You never stop learning. You know what I mean? Even stuff like sometimes I relearn stuff. You know what I mean? Like stuff that I was big into 10, 15 years ago and I forgot about and I got back into it. Stuff like that. So I go back and revisit stuff and definitely with 40-year-old eyes, versus 25-year-old eyes, things are completely different in that scenario too, A lot of the movies that I used to watch when I was a kid, I identified with the teenage character. And then now that I'm older, I identify with their dad. And like I completely get why. Okay, it's Principal Vernon on The Breakfast Club. I can completely understand why he didn't like John Bender, because me as like if a 17-year-old or 16-year-old talked to me the way John Bender was talking, I'd fucking get hot too. You understand? So like I understand all that kind of stuff now. So yeah, you never stop paying dues. Everything is about progression and learning and that kind of thing. It just it's when people use paying dues as a way to mistreat people. You understand? Like that's not our ultimate goal. Obviously we want people to respect the business and do what needs to be done and things like that, but you don't want to purposely, be doing something that's not Christian, I guess is where I'm trying to go with this. Like you treat others as you want to be treated, So like to me personally, I've never felt like anyone ever took advantage of me as far as paying dues go, or oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. I mean, yeah, there's wrestling politics. There's stuff you have to play out and see how it goes, but I mean, for the most part, I've had a pretty good run as far as having people take care of me.
Okay, so I guess I want to kind of put a point on that. As I heard you describe there for a moment, it's almost like you were describing a hazing situation. Does it ever where people kind of take this concept of paying dues and kind of use it to excuse something else?
Yeah, I mean, there's been guys over the years that I've seen, like, just because they were wrestling a young guy, they beat the fuck out of him. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
I have seen that.
Yeah, and that's not what we're talking about. Now, I have instructed people to, hey, light this guy up because he did this, or this. You understand? And that's part of the learning process too. But if someone has done nothing, to warrant that, you understand? If they're just a good kid and they just, want to wrestle and someone's taking advantage of them, that's not right. And that's something we really, I'm really vocal about. Hey, motherfucker, that's not right. Don't do that shit. So it's a case by case basis, but it has happened.
Okay. Well, I guess one place to go with this is, if you like, go over some examples of how one goes about paying dues. You mentioned putting up the ring, and in that last little bit, you kind of mentioned that it can happen during the course of a match even, I suppose, in a manner of speaking. So if you might, for the listeners who don't have the inside perspective you do, kind of give them an idea of how do wrestlers go about doing this. So
Yeah, just the main thing is understanding that you're at the bottom of the totem pole in the beginning and basically making yourself available for whatever could be used in that company, just to help that company. Because people don't understand how much it takes to run a wrestling company, a successful one anyway. And just like us, keeping personnel has always been an issue. So anyone that can help with any little thing, you know what I mean? Like I found a good guy to make my posters, you know what I mean? And he's a worker, but like he gives me a really good rate on making posters, as to where if I had to pay, what some of these other graphic designers charge, I would be broke. There would be no money. You see what I'm saying? It would just eat me alive. But because he's able to do that, he's able to help us out. We have, even the guy that produces the show for us, Cody Bowers. He's our video and audio, expert for the show, and he does a lot of that kind of stuff behind the scenes. Because that's part of the thing. He wants to be a part of professional wrestling. He wants to pay dues and help us out and things like that. So it's just really making yourself available, sweeping the arena, putting up chairs. If we've had guys that went out and put out posters and stuff for us and stuff like that, and that helps too. Because obviously me myself trying to do it, becomes it all falls on my shoulders, So anytime anyone can help me do anything, I really appreciate it. And that's part of what paying dues is, because eventually you put in that work, and eventually you're going to get opportunities out of it. You know what I mean? If I got 2 trainees and one of them is doing everything I ask them to do, all that kind of stuff we're talking about, and the other one just kind of ducks out early all the time, or just basically just comes to train and stuff like that, and if those two are up for an opportunity that's coming up, whether to work with a legend or to do something specific on the show or anything like that, then I'm going to go with the guy that's helped us out. You know what I mean? Because obviously he respects the business, and he's put in the work and paid the dues to make us more successful.
All right. Well, I like most of what you said there actually didn't have anything to do with in-ring performance, because ultimately, and we had an unfortunate experience of this, of what professional wrestling is like without an audience.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and all those things that have to be done, whether it's posters, what have you, ultimately we're trying to promote this and get people into the building. Because really, it doesn't really matter how great a match you have if no one was there to see it.
That's a very good point. And another thing with that, too, is it's just so hard nowadays to get a crowd. You understand? A lot of people, and this is what I tell everybody, too. Like, if you really want to see where the business was and is now, then go read Jim Cornette's Midnight Express book. Because he breaks down the houses they were working in front of and how much they got paid and, like, the whole nine. And hearing some of the houses and the numbers that they had is astronomical. Like, literally, he's talking about $250,000 houses. You know what I mean? And then the boys get, 32% of that. That kind of. So imagine the kind of money that was being. It's just astronomical. But nowadays, I've seen companies with payrolls of $25,000, and they draw 500 people. And then they think they're a success, and that's not work. You're not making any money doing that. So nowadays, if you drew 1,000 people to a wrestling show, in today's climate, then you're one of the top tier echelon promotions in the country. You know what I mean? Because most people don't do that. Even TNA, like I found out TNA, the most they ever drew was like 5,000. Or 6,000. It was something really, like, I didn't even know that. But, like, once I heard the number, I was like, well, son of a bitch. And think about all the workhorses and all the, stud horses that they had during that period. You know what I mean? Kurt Angle, Booker T, Kevin Nash, Sting, Joe, AJ. I mean, like, how much more of a stacked roster could you get, and they only drew 5,000? Of course, that goes down to booking, too. We've talked about that, too. But.
Well, yeah, that company did have some issues in that regard. I think it's fair to say. Do you think that's – well, this is going to be a sidetrack. Do you think this is just a nature of our society? I've noticed, for instance, in pro sports in general, the ratings are down pretty much across the board, where you look at the NBA Finals recently happened and a number of other things, to where, and I've heard some projections on the Olympics where they were, and do you think it's just a kind of the entertainment has this is way off, but become fractured, you think?
I think part of it is the fact that, I don't know, have they even determined how to really quantify all the ways people watch this stuff nowadays? Are we still on the Nielsen rating system from 1975?
Well, I believe it still exists, but I think a lot of people have trouble because, for instance, the people who watch on DVR. When I watch pro wrestling, it really.
Yeah, I don't watch anything.
It's exclusively on DVR now, and I know they only count so many days past the airing before it counts in the ratings, and I don't I don't know exactly how you keep up with that precisely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, I'm sure there's an algorithm somewhere, but like, to me, it's like, yeah, the ratings are down, and obviously they're down, but also let's look at it from a realistic standpoint. How many people were watching it on YouTube? How many people were watching it through a streaming service of some kind? How many people were watching, like the Olympics, for instance, are available on my Peacock. So how does that factor in to the overall ratings? You understand? Now with YouTube, obviously you can see right there, hey, it's got 5 million views, so we know that. But like my kids, like I was talking about, my son Xavier has a YouTube channel. It's pretty successful. He has, almost 2 million, or he may have 3 million. I'm not sure. Anyways, he has millions of views on his YouTube channel, and like they talk about, well, I got this many in this many days, right? So like there's how many. As soon as I tell them how many views something has, they go, well, when was it published? Then I tell them, they're like, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they base it on time and stuff like that. But
Okay.
I wonder how, if in wrestling, for instance, like how much are we actually seeing from, like I said, those other streaming services and social media and things like that.
Okay. I do want to go back on. You mentioned about the type of attendance that was being drawn. In times past, and I was thinking about, because this is a concept I'm mildly concerned about as professional wrestling at the national level begins to go back on the road, and at some point the non-televised events, they've been promised they will be returning, and I suppose they are, because even before the pandemic, etc., I had heard often about the size of the crowds that even WWE was drawing for live events was a real concern for them. And I thought, if you have the name recognition of WWE coming to your town, and it's not drawing large number of people, that's a real concern for the future.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. Like, it's just so hard to get a crowd these days. And it's because you're competing for every set of eyeballs, obviously. But it's also because we've diminished professional wrestling for the last 20, 30 years. You understand? We told everybody it was fake and phony. And like I've talked about before, like everyone thinks that every decision made is arbitrary. Ergo, what does it matter? You know what I mean? So, why should people care about it? Our thought process is, hey, let's make people care about it. Let's have good versus evil, which we know works. Let's have where it's a sporting contest based in realism, which we know works, right? Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? And I really think it was because there was just this crop of guys of the blind leading the blind, teaching guys how to work that themselves didn't know how to work or make money or get over. You know what I mean? But it's, this is the way it's supposed to be. Well, no, it's not. Because if you go back and you do any kind of research with Jim Cornette or Gary Hart or Ole Anderson or anybody that made millions and millions of dollars in professional wrestling, you will understand how wrong you are.
Okay. Well, along that line, I guess what we're saying is, in some cases, the performance almost become an attempt to top other people. Hey, I can do, what is it? Because they go from 450 to 6 something and 720, and how many can I do? And all that's great, but ultimately what you're trying to do is engage an audience.
Yeah. And that's Dave Meltzer is one of the best workers in wrestling history, even though he's not a wrestler or a worker. You know what I mean? Because he's convinced everybody that his opinion on professional wrestling really, really matters. Right? 5-star, 6-star, how many star match? Who gives a fuck? I don't. It's just, to me, it was always, hey, that was a good match. I was that made me believe. That made me love this guy or made me hate that other guy. So that's kind of how I always base matches on. But he bases it on whatever his whim is. Like, there's no way you can tell me that any of those Kenny Omega matches were better than Flair Steamboat.
What? No. Well, we've got the Olympics at hand. It almost sounds like the scoring of an Olympic event. It has always baffled me when I see an Olympic event going on. I've got this on the brain.
It's always the East German judge.
They were tough. But it's like they would see someone perform a gymnastic event, whatever it is, and they say, well, okay, that one is a 5.7, but the one after it, which did basically the same thing, is a 5.2. I don't know how he did, because I think, did he invent the 6-star for one of Kenny Omega's matches?
Yes.
because he had always stopped at 5, but then somehow Kenny Omega convinced him, and I think it was the Okada match. I want to say at Wrestle Kingdom, which, in fairness, I enjoyed the match. I had a chance to see that match. I enjoyed the match. I don't know how you decide. Well, this is so fantastic. I'm going to reinvent my scoring system, but it's almost like that. I don't know. He kind of promoted himself off of that as much as he did Kenny Omega, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of been the whole concept of professional wrestling nowadays is everyone wants to work the boys. You know what I mean? Like, okay, but that's not really going to draw you any money. But that's really what they're predicating a lot of this stuff on. Like I said, the AEW Dark thing. The AEW Dark is solely there, in my opinion, to get all these local indie guys a place to come on and get beat by whoever, and then they share it, and then, oh, so-and-so was on AEW Dark. And it just like it creates this like little buzz, but it doesn't really go anywhere. You know what I mean? Like I said before, if they really, any company, if they really had any use for you, then they would protect you and not let you be seen or beat too soon.
Okay. And going off that, I guess the idea is you can say, as you just kind of, it's something to put on a resume. You say, hey, this guy's coming to our town. He's made appearances on AEW Dark. Yeah. Just so you can put those letters associated with your name when you're coming to a new promotion, for instance. Okay.
Yeah, and we've had several guys that have been on AEW Dark and things like that. But like I said, it's not, good for them. I'm sure they got a pretty good payday, or got some YouTube views and stuff like that. That's great. But I mean, in the overall concept of professional wrestling, are you really drawing money? Are you really helping your brand? Like I remember a former WWE guy, when he was in developmental, he told me that when they would call them up to do like the security roles and things like that, he would always try to almost like hide himself in the segment because he didn't want to be seen as a security guard. He didn't want to be on national television as a security guard. He wanted to be a professional wrestler. And to me that's actually a good concept because, I want to project myself as a star.
Okay.
You understand? I want to project myself as a professional, right? So I don't want people to me, like if I went to WWE tomorrow and they went, hey, I want you to play this EMT, like why the fuck? But I mean, I understand it's a work and I understand it's television, but at the same time, like I don't want to be an EMT. I want to wrestle.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think would they have done that with anybody? You know what I mean? Like back in the day, like Sting. Hey Sting, we might go out there and be an EMT.
Well, no.
Yeah. See what I'm saying?
Well, this is interesting. I had not considered that in this point because as you were describing the situation, I know Daniel Bryan appeared as a security.
Yeah.
I remember CM Punk being on the side of John Cena's car during an entrance or something in Chicago.
Yeah, the WrestleMania.
Those sorts of things. The Chelsea Green, she did a segment where she accused Daniel Bryan of various things.
But a lot of that stuff also too lends to the television aspect of professional wrestling because, Victoria was in, the thing with Eddie Guerrero and there's just stuff like that. And basically what that does is it points to professional wrestling is phony. This is fake because obviously this person was this character here, but now they're this character here. And that's where WWE has always kind of lost me is they went from a sporting thing to a movie thing, right? And we've talked about this before. If there's a kid that can throw a 103-mile-an-hour fastball, everybody in the major league knows who that kid is.
Right.
Right, and they're vying for position to get that.
Yeah,
talent.
they will find him.
Wrestling's really not that way anymore. Wrestling is a casting call. You understand? We're looking for this. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what's trickled down over the years is that concept. Like it doesn't matter how good you are or how great you could be if given a bigger stage. It only matters what they're looking for. If you're not 6'2" or got abs or if you have long hair like, so-and-so and they don't want you to have long hair, they're going to tell you to cut it. You know what I mean? Like it's very, very Hollywood in the sense of I need 30 to 40 white males with dark hair and a strong chin. You know what I mean? And then we get 200 guys like that, and they pick the one guy out of the 200 that they feel is the best.
Yeah, that they will get behind. Well, and I do want to try to bring this back around, but basically, in all we're talking about and the various challenges that professional wrestling faces, I think what you're talking about is you're wanting those getting into professional wrestling to display a level of commitment to do what it takes to promote and expand and grow this business and make it thrive. Is that what you're getting at?
And that's the thing too. Like if you're working for Company X and you help Company X become bigger and better, then you ultimately help yourself become bigger and better, right? And that's why I've always been a proponent of, I've always been kind of a company guy. Whoever I was working for, I tried to do the best business I possibly could. At the same time, trying to protect myself, which is always kind of a little, left hand, right hand action. But I mean, so yeah, you want to just build the company up as much as you can, so in turn you're a star as well. One of my not famous, but one of my trademark things is I call myself the best of the best. You know what I mean? And that came from Ripley, Tennessee, when I finally was the champion, and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm in the best company with the best talent, and I'm the champion." You know what that makes me? That makes me the best of the best. And in that one sentence, I put over the company, every wrestler in the company, myself, the title, and everything. So to me, there's no fat on that statement. You understand that statement, that one sentence, made everybody. You understand, and that's what you want to try to do. And like, as you want to build whatever you're doing up to be this. I don't care what they're doing over here. This is what we're doing, and this is the more polished product, I guess.
All right, and I believe our time is drawing near here, but basically it's just have an attitude of gratitude as a cliche as that may sound, and appreciate professional wrestling and what it takes to make it happen, and the people who make it happen. For in your case, the people you share the locker room with, the guys who perform as referees or security or work the concession stand, whatever it takes to make this thing that we all love so much continue to go.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's something that's been lost over the years too. Is people are always more looking out for themselves than they are the company. So then the company goes out of business, and they don't care. You know why? Because there's going to be another one that pops up in their place momentarily. You know what I mean? So like, to me, it's the company needs to make money to keep going, right? So if the company makes money, then you can make money too. But there has to be, the house always has to win. You know what I mean? So like, the company always needs to stay in the black as much as possible. And anytime you can help the company stay in black, it is a benefit to everyone, in my opinion.
Okay. I guess to sum up, the idea is you get out of it what you put into it. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it, to sort of sum up, so to speak.
And also, to sum up, too, is, like I said before, just you have to be extremely dedicated to be successful in anything, but especially professional wrestling. Because there's very few spots available. There's very few, like I said, we're a niche thing. We're the biggest niche, but we're a niche thing. You understand? There's still, they don't sell out Madison Square Garden for kite flying or shit like that. So we're still the biggest niche, but we're never going to be as big as music or the Major League Baseball or just the overall drawing power of all those things. NBA, NFL, all the major sports and things like that. So you have to dedicate yourself to it to be the best you can possibly be, and maybe you'll get one of these rare opportunities that's out there.
And I tell you from what you're saying, the payback for what you put in may not come immediately.
No. It's gonna be a long, long time. Like I've been a professional wrestler 21 years, and I waited over 10 years before I even thought about running my own stuff, because just wasn't ready. You know what I mean? But a lot of people don't have that same concept. They think if they've got $3,000, they can go buy a ring, and then all of a sudden they're a wrestling promoter.
There you go.
And that's all they have to do, because they, like we said, everyone says that all the decisions are arbitrary anyway, so why not, right? But that's not the way it works, and that hurts the business overall. Like you said, we're over our time, not that much this week, with 34 minutes, right on 35. From your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, and from my co-host, the Molotov Cocktail, Mark Tipton. Thank you, and goodbye.